Hello everyone, this is Major Green, also known as Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about force ghosts and how come we don't see them actually do anything if they're supposedly so powerful. The first ghost we saw was Obi-Wan, and just before he got killed off by Vader, he told him that if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine, and then he disappears when he gets killed, and Vader is very surprised by this, so this is obviously a new ability. This was explained in episode 3 and also in the Clone Wars cartoon. It was explained that Qui-Gon Jinn basically became the first Jedi who learned how to maintain his consciousness even after death and to return as a spirit, but he was not able to do that fully, but he was able to teach Yoda and Obi-Wan how to do that, which is why they later were able to do that, while other Jedi previously did not. I also hope we see Mark Hamill again as Luke Skywalker as a ghost, and maybe he will finally do something. Unlike those other ghosts, maybe he will finally be doing something as a ghost, which might be a lot of fun, and also will explain this issue, and so I really hope it will happen. And maybe this will help redeem Luke Skywalker's death in episode 8, which was kind of premature. I think most fans would agree. And so I think if we see him again as being even more powerful as a ghost and doing something in the next movie, maybe it will redeem his death in episode 8, and so I really hope it will happen. So here is my theory about this whole issue. So as I said, we saw Obi-Wan basically being killed off and becoming a Force ghost, and then being able to talk to Luke as a voice in his head, and later appear to him physically as a ghost. And later Yoda also died and also appeared as a ghost. And we saw him again in episode 8, in which he did do something. He used basically the weather to send a lightning bolt to destroy that tree. So this shows that Force ghosts are actually very powerful, but seem to be highly limited. It was stated by the Obi-Wan ghost in episode 5 that he cannot intervene.
If you choose to face Vader, you will do it alone. I cannot interfere.
So why is this? So is there some kind of a prime directive? Is there some limitations on what they can or cannot do? Maybe they can only manifest themselves in specific places, on specific planets, maybe only in places which are strong in the Force. So that might be an explanation. However, I can't get over the fact that Obi-Wan said that I will become more powerful than you can imagine. And so if this is taken literally, then that means they should be much more powerful than they were when alive. And so they should be able to be doing a lot more stuff than they do. So they must have some reason why they are limiting themselves. I think the best explanation would be something like we saw in Stargate SG-1, and I was a big fan of that show as well, and it also had this kind of same idea of people being able to ascend into a higher level of existence and to appear as spirits with powers. And honestly, I didn't really like that part of the show. I much prefer the hardcore science fiction and not so much fantasy, and so ghosts and stuff like that is too much fantasy for my taste, but it was part of the show, and at least they did explain this question in Stargate SG-1. They basically said that there are many ascended beings and they have a sort of like a prime directive that they are not allowing anyone who is ascended to intervene in the affairs of normal people, mortal people. And I think it was later explained that the reason is that they don't want to be worshipped as gods. We saw that there is an evil group of ascended beings in another galaxy who are basically pretending to be gods. Mortal people who believe in them, it somehow gives them energy and makes them more powerful, and also makes them corrupt and evil. And so the good ascended beings basically are against that, and they don't want that to happen to them, and so they're basically against using their powers to help mortal beings, especially openly, meaning with people knowing that they're the one doing that. If you do it indirectly, you somehow help out someone without them knowing that you're helping them, then that's more permissible. That's what was implied in Stargate SG-1, that some of them were actually interfering in very small amounts and without it being too obvious. And this way no one would believe them, no one would pray to them as gods, and this would avoid that whole problem of them becoming drunk with energy or whatever the reason. So it's kind of silly, it's all fantasy of course, but at least it did have some explanation in the show for why those ascended beings are not interfering. Basically they don't want to be worshipped as gods, and also they don't want to disrupt the natural evolution of normal beings, I guess. And so this is kind of like in Star Trek, where Starfleet doesn't want to interfere with primitive people, and sometimes for similar reasons. Like for example, if Starfleet interferes and helps some primitive planet, then the people on that planet will pray to them as gods, and that will also negatively affect their whole society moving on. and that was one of the reasons for the Prime Directive in Star Trek. And so the Ascended beings in Stargate have a similar kind of Prime Directive. So moving back to Star Wars, so we have this Jedi who became Force Ghosts, who claim that they are more powerful than you can imagine, and yet who never actually do anything except for Yoda in Episode 8, who only did something in that one scene of him destroying the tree, but he never did anything else. So if he's this powerful, why didn't he simply show up on Snoke's ship and simply zap Snoke, for example, or zap Kylo? So why don't they do any of this? So this is a big problem if it's left unexplained. So I think it can only be explained either by saying that they are not as powerful as you think, that they can only appear to force sensitive people and only in certain places, certain times. And we also saw that Yoda has to use the weather. He cannot directly zap the tree. He has to use the existing storm over the island to do this. So this implies that he can only manipulate something in the real physical world and he cannot create the lightning. So maybe he's not as powerful as it seems. Or maybe he's simply kind of manipulating the rules. Maybe there is a kind of Prime Directive like in Stargate. Maybe there are many more ascended beings in Star Wars as well, not just the Jedi. We do know from the expanded universe there are all those celestial beings, and so maybe there is a sort of Prime Directive of those ascended beings club. And once Obi-Wan and Yoda became Force Ghosts, they also had to follow those same rules. And they could only violate them very slightly by slight manipulation. So maybe they can appear and whisper something once in a while, or they can manipulate the weather to do something just like Yoda did here, but he's not allowed to do something more. I think that's the only way to explain all of this. And so I think this question should be answered in episode 9, otherwise it will be kind of left hanging, and most people don't read all the expanded universe stuff. I think most people don't want to read about it in the expanded universe. Most people would appreciate hearing an explanation in the actual movies, because it's something that we did see in the movies themselves. And so I think the next movie has to address this topic and solve it. And I think we have to see Luke again as a Force Ghost in the next movie to help redeem his death in episode 8, which was of course very disappointing for many people. And so I think we have to see them, and this way we know that he's not really dead. In fact, he's even more powerful now as a spirit, and so maybe he will be even doing something as a spirit to help the good side win, and I think that might be very interesting. Maybe it might be revealed that dark side users are also able to ascend. Maybe some of them did ascend, and maybe there is a kind of equilibrium, kind of a Cold War ceasefire between the good and bad spirits. And I think Luke as a ghost should actually violate the rules and actually do something to save the galaxy from the evil side and stuff like that. It might be very interesting. This is also something that was kind of done in Stargate SG-1, and I think that might be very interesting, and I think it's a must for us to see. We saw Yoda do a little bit of something in episode 8, but in episode 9 Luke should be doing something a lot bigger than that. Maybe go up against something which is way more powerful than something a normal Jedi can win against. Show us something very epic, which would really kind of signify the struggle of good versus evil. Show us something very epic like that, which will also explain this whole topic and also kind of wrap it up nicely to really make it all worthwhile, to make all this issue of the Force Ghost, make it lead into something, and to have an epic conclusion for that bit of Star Wars. So I really hope it's something we will see in episode 9. I kind of doubt we will, but I really hope we do. So that's really all I wanted to say on that. Please let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below, and we can continue the discussion in the comments. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.